Hello and welcome back to episode 107 of The Next Best Bet. We have some NFL playoffs going on as we are recording this on a beautiful Sunday night. The Browns versus the Steelers is going on, and that's why as we go into our hindsight with Higgins here, I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy. As always, Brett, you and I each have a bet that are out now. Not a strong start for us this weekend. I'm 0-3, but the Cleveland Browns plus 5.5 is still out as we're recording this. Based off what it's looking like at halftime, I'm optimistic, I would say, but I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch.
First of all, you're very bold to assume it's nice everywhere. It's pretty windy out here. It's chilly. It's like, below 20. It's a little nippy here, Higgins. But yeah, I mean, the Browns game's been a bit one-sided, and we did not have our best week.
No, we did not. Your Levy lock looks like it may fall. I mean, 35 points in the first half is a tough run on an under, but there's still always time. I mean, the second half could be a big old goose egg on both sides. But the real news is the pick of the pod is really just the fate of the week. I mean, that seems to be a lock to just bet against me on whatever that is. So stick around to the end of the podcast for our pick of the pod and Levy locks because you're probably going to want to bet against me here if history has anything to say with it. If you bet against me, you'll win. If you follow me, you're probably not going to. Let's get into Beginner's Boulevard, though, Brett. And we're going to talk about reduced juice. Now, that's when a sports book lowers the vig on a game. Now, for example, an average for a spread, the typical wager line would be at minus 110. If it's at minus 105, that's reduced juice. Now, on the other end, boosted juice would be like minus 115, which we're actually going to see in a few of our player props in the college football.
Yeah, and this is good to be aware of, and it's part of why we tell people to line shop, Higgins, because sometimes the spread may move a point or a half point in some places, but sometimes it's the juice.
And a lot of times that juice can move based off of what that specific sports book has taken in on those bets. So line shopping can help you. It might be -3 at both places, but one place might have it at minus 110 and one place might have it at minus 105. So just helping saving yourself on the VIG can really help make sure that you are getting those winning percentages when you're talking about overall sports betting in the long run cumulatively.
Totally agree. But let's hop into the Monday Night Football. Well, I guess it's Monday Night Football. It's the
It's Monday
only
Night
Monday
Football. It's
Night
fine to call it
Football.
that.
Yeah, I don't know why I called it that, but the college football playoff championship, Higgins.
A beautiful game. And Brett, you may have been right last episode when you told me that if I liked Alabama, I should have taken them on the spread because you said it looked like it was going to be moving, that the spread was going to boost more in Bama's favor. That's exactly what happened. The spread was at -7.5 for Bama, now -8.5. I don't know if I'm confident enough to be on the spread, so you're going to find me a few different ways on Alabama without necessarily betting them on the spread.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I'm going to be not really on the other side, but kind of on the other side. I'm rooting for a close game, Higgins, an entertaining game. Uh, and I'm also rooting for the future quarterback of the New York Jets, Justin Fields. So I'm going to take OSU plus 8.5. And let's see if they can keep it within a touchdown. Keep it close.
And see, I really like that because I think this is going to be a shootout of a game. That's kind of why I was trying to wait to see if the Alabama line would get underneath a touchdown or get to the 7 and to the point where it could be a push if it was a touchdown win. Now, because I think it's going to be a shootout, that's why you're going to find me on the over in this game. 75.5. Now, that is a lot. Yes, it's a lot. But a 42-35 game, does that sound out of the cards for these guys? It really doesn't. I mean, these are very powerful, high octane offenses. Both sides have plenty of playmakers, and I think it's going to be just two offenses showcasing themselves off. And I don't know how much these defenses are going to be able to play a factor in this.
Yeah, I'm just not. 75.5 just is such a big number, Higgins. So I'm just not sure. But I think you're right. It's going to be high scoring. I'll tell you what. that number is going to be in play in the final minutes, and really going to come down to, does the team score or throw a pick, right? Like that's what this is going to. It's going to be right on that number, or right around that number where a touchdown or a field goal puts you over or you're under, right?
Yeah, it's definitely gonna come down to the end, which will give me just more of a reason to make sure that I stick around to the end, whether it's a blowout or a close game. I think you're right. I think it's gonna be a close game. Some places I don't necessarily think it's gonna be close though, is between the two premier rushers. I'm gonna talk about some of these prop bets that I'm gonna be on, Brett, because I like a few of them. And most rushing yards, you have Trey Sermon versus Najee Harris. Trey Sermon's plus 130, a slight underdog to Najee Harris's minus 160. And you're going to find me on Najee Harris minus 160 because if you just look at the output of these two players, Trey Sermon, 868 yards on the season, Najee Harris, 1,387 yards. Now, I know Ohio State played less games than Alabama. They played 5 less games. That should be factored in when you're looking at these stats. However, you should also factor in that Trey Sermon had one game where he had over 300 yards. That's an outlier in his statistics. So as long as that doesn't happen again, Najee Harris's performance on average per game shows that he should be the likely favorite. So you're going to see me try to win a full unit back in this. So I'm going to bet 1.6 units on this minus 160 line to try to get a full unit back in return.
Yeah, Najee Harris has been incredible all year long. I totally agree, Higgins. But Trey Sermon's certainly been hot over the last 2 3 weeks here. So I think it's certainly within reason to see Trey Sermon, you know, in the discussion here. But yeah, I think Najee Harris is the right choice between the two of them.
And just in case Najee Harris is maybe getting a few more receptions than rushes, and so he might lose that most rushing yards. I'm going to try to cover myself a little bit on the Najee Harris over under on total rushing and receiving yards. That's set at 149 and a half. And like I said in the Beginner's Boulevard, the opposite of reduced juice is boosted juice, which would be a minus 115 line. That's where this is at. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to take the over Najee Harris 149 and a half. I did this in the semifinals as well, and it burnt me. The hook burnt me. It was at 155 and a half. Najee Harris had 155 yards. So hopefully he beats the hook in this one, but I think that Najee Harris just out of the backfield, whether you hand the ball off to him or you have him running routes out of the backfield, the man is just too hard to stop at the collegiate level.
Well, there's one more Alabama rushing prop you like, Higgins.
Yes, there is. And that is a half unit is what I'm going to use for that. It's going to be a first touchdown. Now, this is just a hope and a prayer in a sense. It's Mac Jones plus 1,600 to be the first touchdown scorer. Now, this takes a few things into consideration. Since it's the first touchdown scorer and I have the over, I'm assuming that Alabama's going to get the ball first. If Ohio State gets the ball first, that already hurts my chances. Mac Jones also physically has to be the one that scores this touchdown, whether he runs the ball in or there's a trick play that Nick Saban runs that Mac Jones catches a touchdown pass somehow. I don't see that necessarily happening. Basically, what I'm rooting for is someone gets pushed out at basically the goal line and they have a goal line scenario and Mac Jones just follows his line in for the score is what happens. But hey, I've hit on these before. The quarterbacks first touchdowns, they can have some good value like this, and I like the plus 1,600 enough to sprinkle a little bit on there.
Well, you know, Mac Jones, he has one rushing touchdown on the year, so it's not impossible.
Let's get a
It's
second, Mac.
happened.
Here we
It's
go.
happened. Yeah. So there you go. Plus 1,600. Best of luck to you, Higgins.
So there are 3 prop bets that I am on, 2 with Najee Harris, 1 on Mac Jones. That's how you know that I'm going to be rooting for Bama in this game, even though I'm not on the spread there. And I'm also on that over 75 and a half. Brett, the plus 8.5, I still do like that play, though. I think it's going to be a game within a touchdown. I just, I really think Bama's going to win this game, so I can't find myself on that spread like you.
Fair enough. I'm with you. And you know what? I think the Najee Harris props were going to be fun for you. And I think you'll have a great night watching that over under because it's going to be a high scoring game. That's just a number I didn't want to sweat out, to be honest with you, Higgins. I was like, I know this thing's going to get up there, but like, man, 40 to 35 and this thing doesn't hit. Like, I was like, and that's a high scoring game.
Yeah, yes, it really is. Yes, it really is. Now, Brett, we also we're gonna shift gears here. Let's talk about some MLB news right now. I mean, last episode we were talking about the blockbuster trade that the Mets had. Don't necessarily have some Mets news to throw into this episode. However, another NL East team, the Washington Nationals, they sign Cubs outfielder Kyle Schwarber, who's going to no longer be in Chicago. He's heading east to the capital, heading to
Yeah,
DC.
Yeah, I mean, this would have been big news if my Mets didn't land Lindor and Carrasco earlier in the week. And same with the Yankees. They made a trade for outfielder Greg Allen from the Padres, Higgins, but again, overshadowed by my Mets. Just a great time to be a Met. All the Mets.
I saw a great tweet that showed a picture of someone peeling someone's eyes, like holding their eyes open, and it was Steve Cohen forcing Yankees fans to watch the Mets offseason deals.
You know what? These, like Kyle Schwarber's a great bat to add. Greg Allen's going to be a utility player for the Yankees, but like we added a superstar, Higgins.
Two, you added two.
We added,
Francisco Lindor is the headline, but the sub headline Carlos Carrasco is a fantastic
oh
addition that
yeah,
honestly has not gotten enough notice in that trade. I think that's really what makes the Mets the big winner. I mean, Lindor obviously is a big win in that, but getting Carrasco as well, that's just that's
yeah.
icing on the cake.
Carrasco's our number 2 or 3 starter, depending on Syndergaard and when he's back and what he is this year. I have full faith that Syndergaard will be back, but year one off Tommy John, you never know. So, might be some innings limits and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's obviously huge to add that arm.
It really is. Now, Brett, let's talk about just a feel good money line magic story. You pointed this out to me. It was a top 25 matchup on Saturday between Texas and West Virginia. And I'm going to just let you tell the story because it's just a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's important to know there was a comeback here, Higgins. West Virginia was leading by 5 with about a minute 28 left. Matt Coleman goes to the foul line, makes both free throws, cuts it to a 3-point lead. A foul on the floor. West Virginia misses the 1-and-1. Texas comes back down, cuts the lead to 2. West Virginia would then miss actually 4 shots, Higgins, in a row. 2 free throws and 2 just, in game shots. So 4 shots go at the rim, none go in. And this creates one of the best money line magics we've ever had, Higgins. 3 years after, or 3 years to the date of his cancer diagnosis, Andrew Jones hits a corner three with 1 second remaining to beat West Virginia, Higgins. Amazing.
Clap a round of applause for Andrew Jones. I mean, first off, the beating of the cancer diagnosis, that day is going to be special for him for the rest of his life, I would imagine. And then being able to hit a game winning shot. First of all, we really should talk about the pass. I mean, the pass that was sent to Andrew Jones was an amazing drive by Courtney Ramey to the basket, and he just drew a lot of Mountaineer attention, and it forced a kick out for a wide open shot by Jones. It was just an amazing play overall, but congratulations to Jones on a very special moment on a very special day for him.
Yeah, and the Longhorns are playing well, Higgins, so we gotta be keep our eyes out.
10-1, 4-0 in their conference, so a little bit of a surprise out of the Big 12 maybe.
Yeah, they won in Lawrence already, so look out for the Longhorns.
Look out for the Longhorns is right. Today's episode is brought to you by Fanatics, by the way. Fanatics is the world's largest collection of official fan gear from all the leagues, teams, and players you love. If you enjoy our show and are looking to buy a New Jersey sweatshirt or hat, you can support us by going to podgo.co/fanatics and getting 25% off your next order. That's podgo.co/fanatics. Fanatics officially licensed everything. Now, Brett, obviously the biggest news on Monday, the biggest game is going to be the college football playoffs, but we do have some NBA. There is some college basketball and some NHL as well, but Brett, you and I were talking before the show. Is the college basketball even worth it, in your opinion, to watch?
No, I mean, look, with all due respect to even the NBA, we're gonna be watching the college football game. I mean, that's what we're gonna be watching. UConn and DePaul playing college basketball. If you're a diehard Big East fan, maybe you tune in. But unless you're watching Alcorn State, there's no reason to watch. Go watch the college football national championship game.
Yeah, there's not a single top 25 matchup on Monday with not a single top 25 program playing. Feel like that's on purpose. NBA has a light schedule, 8 games. We only had three games with spreads listed as of recording. That kind of seems intentional. I mean, you know when the college football playoffs are. That's scheduled months in advance, so you can work your broadcasting around it because you know most eyes are going to be there. So you're not going to set up a competitive Lakers Clippers game or something like that against it. It wouldn't make sense necessarily. So we have some interesting games. We have a few picks still with the NBA, but not necessarily the best sport of the night per se, I'd say.
No, there's some decent matchups though. To your point, Higgins. Uh, Real quick, we have Philly Atlanta, which is interesting. Philly was off to the hot start. They've fallen back a little bit. New Orleans Dallas is an interesting matchup. But yeah, no real marquee games.
Well, the Sixers, they came into some struggles when Seth Curry had his COVID exposure. But it seems like I got some notifications on my phone today that some of those players are going to be available on Monday. I believe Joel Embiid's expected to be able to play. I think Ben Simmons is questionable, I think I saw. So Sixers are starting to get back to full strength again. We don't have a line for that game, though. One of the games that we do have a line for, the Pacers versus the Kings. Now, the Pacers, they have been playing pretty well so far, especially on the road. It's only been 2 games on the road, but they're 2-0. And against the spread, they're 5-2. 6-3 overall record, 5-2 against the spread. I'm going to take the Pacers -4.5 here. I mean, the Kings, I've liked the Kings a little bit, but they did burn me recently because they've gone through a little bit of a slump with back-to-back losses. They've lost 4 of their last 5. Meanwhile, the Pacers have been a little bit better than that. So I expect Indiana to go on the road and have a successful night. So -4.5 for the Pacers for me.
Go Pacers.
And then we also have lines on the Knicks and Hornets. The Knicks first quarter spread, that's still hitting, by the way. So
Fuego.
I'd say keep taking it. The Knicks first quarter spread, that keeps hitting. I've been doing that, and it keeps hitting, so I'd say keep doing that. The Raptors-Blazers game, now, as bad as the Raptors have been to start the season, I don't know if I can commit to the Portland Trailblazers tomorrow night, so I don't know if I'm going to end up being on that game at all. Plus, on Wednesday, we have another sport entering the mix that we have to make sure we bankroll manage for, don't we, Brett?
Yeah, Wednesday night the NHL returns, Higgins, and your Flyers take a big rivalry game on opening night at home versus the Penguins. You and I will be on opposite sides on this one, but I just want to make it clear, Higgins, I'm not really betting against you. I just don't know how many times I'm going to see a plus number next to Pittsburgh this year, and I'm getting it on opening night when we really don't know much about either of these teams. And it's probably as true 50-50 as a game's going to be. So I'm just going to take it. I'm taking it pretty blind. But I know Crosby's going to be out there, and that's pretty much all I need to know to be like, plus 105 with that guy, I'll take it.
Well, you're right. Opening night bets, those can be pretty blind. I mean, especially in the NHL when it's a rivalry game, an in-state rivalry game like this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use some of last year's data. I'm gonna look at how did these teams do last year? Well, the Flyers were one of the best teams on home ice last year. On the road, not that great. At home, they were fantastic. 25, 6, and 4 is how they did at home in the 2019-2020 season. So I think that the Flyers are going to win this since they're at home. I think that there's always the potential for an empty netter, especially in a rivalry game like this late. So that's why I like to bet on these puck lines often because of the potential of an empty netter. You never know what that can do for you. It'll push you over that puck line a lot too. And when you get the Flyers -1.5 at +250, those are some great odds to open the season for me. So let's go Flyers.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely always the chance of the empty netter for sure. That's great to note. In terms of the home ice, I'm not sure what to think of it because to one point there's going to be no fans, but to the other point the blue lines still come into play, like which way your lines are shifting and how you can shift on the offense and defense and things like that. So being the home team's an advantage in that respect at times, but I just I really don't know what's going to happen there. Also, with the home team, you get to change second. Sorry, that's what I was trying to say. The
Yes.
home lines are the blue lines is when you're attacking on your home ice twice. You attack in front of your bench twice, which is nice. But in terms of line changes, you get to react to the opposing team. So it's an advantage, but is it how big of an advantage it is? We shall see.
We shall see is right. But Brett, before we move on from the NHL, when we were writing out these lines, you had a very interesting thought on a way to try to potentially bet both sides of an NHL game with the money line and these puck lines because you get some interesting odds, unlike when you bet spread with the NFL or the NBA per se.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a middle that it could fall in that you miss, but if you, for instance, Colorado and St. Louis is a game that I personally think will be pretty close, Higgins. And if I take a look at the odds right now, Colorado -1.5 on the puck line is +190, and St. Louis is +120 on the money line. So theoretically, Colorado could win by one, and I could lose that bet, but I'm locking myself into plus money almost pretty much. So I don't know if that's a strategy I want to employ, but it was something I looked at today and I was like, huh, that's something I can't do in basketball.
Yeah, when you mention that to me, it's something that I don't think I'm just going to go out there and bet without taking a look at necessarily, but I think for this first week or 2 of the NHL, I might start looking at what you're saying here of where there's a positive odds for the puck line for one team, and then for the other team, they have a positive odds on the money line, and just see how that plays out. How many times does it fall in the middle that you would be a loser, and how many times would you come out a little bit positive, like with the St. Louis line, where if the Blues ended up winning that game, you'd end up making point 0.2 units, basically.
Right, or maybe Colorado wins Higgins and you make .99 units. So,
Yeah.
or Colorado wins by two. Excuse me, but yeah, it's an interesting strategy. I again, I don't know the numbers. I don't know the math. I'm not doing it in this game, but that game in particular, I was like, that's gonna be a close game, and you can kind of get plus odds on both sides.
Hey, as someone on the West Coast, I'm just happy for more sports because some late night hockey gives me something else to do. Because living on the West Coast, some people love it. They're like, "Oh, you wake up, football's at 10 a.m." I'm more concerned about the fact that games are done by like 8:30 and I have nothing else to do with the rest of my night. I like to watch late night sports personally, so I enjoy the fact that there's some hockey to throw into the mix to maybe be able to watch some sports a little later into the night.
There we go. Get those Kings and Sharks games on, Ducks.
Absolutely. And I mean, speaking of the NFL, we had some NFL action this weekend. If you didn't know, it was the NFL playoffs. Those did take place. And so while the Browns Steelers game's going on still right now, it's 35-10 in the third quarter early. There's still a lot of game to play with that. So we don't necessarily have the AFC lines out yet, but we do have some early NFC lines, Brett. Rams at Packers, Bucks at Saints. Early gut feelings. What are your thoughts with these games?
Well, I'm curious what's going to happen with Aaron Donald. He left the Rams' last playoff game. They're winning versus Seattle.
Hmm.
Um, I'm curious what's going to happen with him, but if he's not available, I'm going to wish I took this Green Bay -7 because that line's going to jump probably to at least 8.5, I would think. So I think if you think Aaron Donald's going to be out, you want this Green Bay -7 right now. Now, there's a chance Donald plays and maybe it drops a little bit, but I don't think it'll drop below 6.5. So I really think the play is to grab it now if you like Green Bay. And if you like the Rams with or without Donald, I would definitely wait till Donald is officially out.
I'm on your side with liking this Packers -7 play, and I may grab it regardless right now because of a different player and their injury. Jared Goff is playing with pins in his right thumb. He wasn't supposed to play in this last game until Jake Wolford took a hit to the head and had to go to the hospital. Now, Goff was able to come in and win, but Green Bay gets a lot colder than Seattle does. I don't know how his thumb would necessarily react to that cold. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a fresh injury he's still recovering from.
Maybe it'll
Green
be
Bay,
numb.
the frozen tundra is a tough place to go play, especially when it gets really cold like this in late January or mid-January. So I think Green Bay has just been a machine on offense, and with the concerns of injury with the Rams on both sides of the ball, it seems like a no-brainer for the Packers right now. So I think grabbing the -7 while it's still within one touchdown is the play because I sp- I I stayed off of the Bama -7 when the opening line was like that, and that went to -8.5, and I'm kicking myself for it. So I think I might do the smart thing and try to grab Packers -7 before maybe that gets to a -8.5. Similarly,
All right, fair enough. I like that, Higgins. And then New Orleans -3.5 is interesting because it's really tough to beat a team 3 times in one season, Higgins. But New Orleans has killed Tampa Bay this year. So I'm certainly not going to pick Tampa in this one. So it's really New Orleans or nothing for me. And the question is, do I think people are going to hop on New Orleans throughout the week or do I think they're going to hop on Tampa? My gut tells me they're going to hop on Tampa. So maybe I get New Orleans at just 3 and I can push with a field goal by the end of the week. And maybe I'm more enticed to take that by our next podcast. Or maybe I'm even waiting till Sunday. But 3.5, I'm probably going to stay off of it just because maybe this one comes down to a field goal late. And I don't know. 3.5 just seems like it's just not, it doesn't cover all the numbers I want it to cover.
yeah, as an early line, I don't necessarily see the value at New Orleans -3.5 to give you reason to take it right now. Um, this is a Drew Brees versus Tom Brady legacy game, is really what it is. That's kind of what this
Ooh.
game comes down to. The two have been fighting it out for the all-time touchdown record with each other. To your point, the Saints did play against the Bucks twice and played them really well. But also, it's really tough to beat a team 3 times. That's a really, really tall task.
I totally agree, but I mean, look at the scores of those 2 games. Hold
I know.
on,
I
let me
know.
pull them up because I don't have them. But I mean, the scores of these games.
The scores of these games were New Orleans won opening week 34-23. That was at home, and then later on they won 38-3 in Tampa Bay.
Tom Tom wasn't particularly great in either of those. It was just a mess. Like I I just remember thinking to myself after the second one, I was like, I don't really think Tampa Bay wants to see these guys in the postseason. And they're matched up. I think it'll be closer than that second score indicates, but I'm not willing to just say, oh, it's so hard to beat a team 3 times they can't do it. They have really not given me a reason to believe they can do it.
And if you look at how they both teams played in their wild card game, for example, New Orleans ran over Chicago and got slimed on by the Nickelodeon graphics basically every time they scored a touchdown. And Tampa struggled against a Washington team that had to start their third string, or I guess second string quarterback technically, because Dwayne Haskins was ruled out and Alex Smith was their starter. But Taylor Heineke probably made himself a multimillionaire in the process of that one game right there, and is going to get himself paid with a backup quarterback contract somewhere. And Tom Brady struggled against that Washington team. So if you're looking off of their most recent game in that playoff scenario, plus their most recent matchups against each other, New Orleans seems like the team that you should go with here. But I still stick with the fact that -3.5 on an early line where in the coronavirus era, anyone can get ruled out this week. I don't see the value to necessarily take that yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But let's get to our fate of the pod and our Levy log.
Yes, let's get to our fate of the pod. It's supposed to be my pick of the pod, but I can't, in good conscience, tell anyone to actually ride with me on my pick of the pod when I'm 0-3 since the start of 2021. I think I've lost 7, 8 straight at this point. It was a rough December into January with my pick of the pods. Let's just leave it at that. So I am picking Pacers -4.5. Now, all the logistics say to go with the Pacers. They're 6-3, 2-0 on the road so far this season. Sacramento, they are 4-6, 3-3 at home this season. And the Pacers are 5-2 against the spread. I mean, -4.5 feels like the right play for this Indiana Pacers pick. I'm going to be on it. I can't in good conscience tell anyone else to pick it because until my pick of the pod turns green and it cashes, I can't tell you to ride with me. So I'm telling everyone, fade me on that pick, and hopefully you make some money because I haven't been as of recently.
Well, I'm rooting for you, Higgins. I think this is the. I said this last episode, but I really believe in this episode. This is where it turns around. This is where it turns around. Pacers -4.5. I'm gonna be on Ohio State +8.5 from my Levy lock. This is really more from the heart than from the head. I just want a really good game on Monday night, Higgins. I want a really good championship game. I want it to come down to that final drive. I want that final drive to have the over-under in play. I want the spread in play. I want everything in play and everyone to be invested. And it should be an exciting night in college football, and everyone will be watching.
Yes, it really should be an exciting night in college football. By the way, breaking news for you, Brett, as you were reading off your Levy lock and giving that to us for episode 107, the Pittsburgh Steelers scored, so your Levy lock from episode 106 does not cash, unfortunately.
Well, you win some, you lose some.
There we go.
That's a bummer, but it's okay, Higgins. I'm 2-1, so 2-1
Much better
officially
than
on the Levy lock. It's okay.
Much better than me with my pick of the pod, that's for sure. I mean, the Levy lock's at least something that you can try to ride with and have some success with. So make sure to follow us on social media as well. We'll be giving out some other picks in between now and next episode at NBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel. This has been episode 107 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you guys again on Thursday.